Flood survivor snaps at CNN reporter. A CNN reporter received a serious dressing down when a Houston flood survivor snapped and launched into a live on-air rant.
First date, yeah, that's a lot of but y'all sit here, y'all trying to interview people during their worst times. Like, that's not the smartest thing to do. Like, people are really breaking down and y'all sitting here with cameras and microphones trying to ask us what the wrong with us.
I'm so
and you really trying to understand with the microphone still in my face, with me shivering cold, with my kids wet, and you still putting a microphone in my face.
The mother and her family are just some of the thousands of people displaced by Hurricane Harvey and the subsequent flooding in Texas. The woman just couldn't believe it when CNN shoved cameras and microphones in the faces of survivors as they sought refuge from the storm. But we'd say there's a fine line here. However shocking or uncomfortable, journalists have a job to do. It's just that some of them lack sensitivity to the needs of others, absorbed in their own ambition and desire to get the story. Fault doesn't just rest with the reporter, however. She has an editor to report to, and would be out of a job the moment she stopped shoving that microphone into survivors' faces. Her bosses, too, have superiors to answer to, and on it goes. We need to see the bigger picture here. The suffering of the survivors, that visceral, voyeuristic connection viewer has to victim, is what we expect to see when we turn on the news. In other words, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? As you're about to see, journalists are human too. When tragedy strikes, it's not always about televising disaster porn. Saved. Hurricane Harvey claimed one less life in Houston after a TV crew helped save a trucker from a watery death. As heavy rain submerged most of the city in floodwater on Sunday, one semi-truck driver found himself trapped inside his vehicle, which was in about 10 feet of water. A KHOU 11 news crew covering the flooding saw the truck and spotted the man stuck inside. They urged the driver to stay put while they called for help. Reporter Brandy Smith flagged down two sheriff's deputies who were driving past with a rescue boat and alerted them to the man's plight. Within minutes, the deputies were on a boat and pulling the driver out of his flooded vehicle to safety. Smith and her cameramen kept the video rolling during the rescue and were relieved when the man was finally back on dry land. It was an emotional rescue, especially after deputies recounted a similar incident last year, which ended in tragedy. Good Samaritans rescue baby and toddler from Texas storm. A vicious storm that ravaged North Texas over the weekend claimed the lives of at least 4. It could have easily claimed 2 more if it wasn't for a group of strangers that sprung into action when help was needed most. Since being uploaded to Facebook on April 29th, this video capturing efforts to free a newborn and a toddler from drowning has been viewed more than 26 million times. As you can see, rushing waters flooded the side of a road near Canton, Texas. As winds raged, Philip and Emily Ogletree's Chevy Silverado pickup truck fell victim to one of Mother Nature's nasty moods. With their 4-month-old baby boy, an 18-month-old little girl trapped in the back seat, the family of 4 had little to no hope of escaping on their own. Luckily for them in their hour of need, the few folks who passed by didn't hesitate to come to their aid. Diving into the water and using a tire iron, lots of muscle, and spontaneous teamwork, they managed to pry the young children loose from the car and get them to safety.
The baby in. Baby here, here. Right here!
The infants, however, were blue in the face, bleeding from the mouth and barely breathing. That's when the man shooting the scene started performing CPR, as a woman prayed to Jesus right behind him.
Breathing. She is breathing. There she goes! There she goes!
Miraculously, seconds before paramedics arrived on scene, he managed to bring them both back to life. Status updates from the parents indicate their youngest child, baby Marshall, is doing well, and little Addison, despite initially needing a breathing machine to keep her alive, is now awake and on the road to recovery. Today, a family is whole again, thanks to some of the bravest hearts in Texas, and maybe baby Jesus. Kids drop from window in dramatic South Korea apartment fire rescue. Neighborhood residents and U.S. military personnel helped save a family from a fiery fate after an inferno lit up a 4-story apartment building in Pyeongtaek, a city located a roughly 2-hour drive south from Seoul, South Korea. Reports say U.S. servicemen and women from the nearby Osan Air Base joined the rescue, helping residents hold taut a blanket that caught 3 children and their mom, who were trapped in the smoke on the 4th floor. The mother, identified only as a 30-year-old Nigerian national, had to be convinced, quite understandably, that throwing her kids down from the window was the only way to save them. It had to be a gut-wrenching decision, but the mom eventually dropped the kids, aged 1, 3, and 4, out of the window. And luckily, one by one, the kids fell safely onto the waiting blanket below. The mother then jumped herself and was saved. U.S. Staff Sergeant Sierra Rogers was reportedly seriously cut by broken glass as she assisted in the rescue. But gratefully, due to the combined efforts of all those involved, all the building's residents survived, with the mother and her kids suffering only minor injuries. We humans really pull together when it comes down to it, don't we? Dumbo to the rescue. 4 days of heavy rain in Nepal led to flash floods and landslides that resulted in at least 70 people dying. Around 600 tourists were also left stranded after the Rapti River overflowed south of Kathmandu. Luckily for them, the pachyderms of Chitwan National Park are on it. The park's elephants marched alongside tractor-trailers on Sunday to rescue some 300 stranded tourists. The gentle giants went back a second time on Monday, transporting the rest of the victims to safety. Chitwan National Park is home to more than 600 rhinos and elephants, and fared much better than another park in India's Assam state, which was also beset by floods. Kaziranga National Park has the world's largest population of endangered one-horned rhinos, but the animals had to be moved to higher ground after floods submerged nearly 90% of the park in water. Transit cop saves man from oncoming train. That man you just saw save a dude from a pancaking is New Jersey Transit Police Officer Victor Ortiz. This guy had reportedly gotten into an argument with other passengers before getting off a train. New Jersey Transit says Ortiz tried reasoning with him, but the man went onto the tracks and laid down. Ortiz, a 16-year veteran, then decided to risk his own life to save the despondent man. After desperately struggling with the man, Ortiz pulls him from the track with literally seconds to spare. Ortiz is being hailed as a hero for his actions, and rightly so. Seriously, would you have done the same?